Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Eidolon Wall. And for my 15th episode, to celebrate the release of Dragon Quest VII Reimagined, which oddly enough comes out today for me because it is past midnight now. It is now the 5th of February for me. It comes out today. Um, I decided to talk about Dragon Quest, and I decided to talk about my favorite game in the series, Dragon Quest VIII. And I'm going to talk about what makes it a good game, and what makes it such a good game and such a fan favorite. Because there have been many people who have said that Dragon Quest VIII are their favorites. Is their favorite. I know a few of my friends who have said that it's their favorite. It is definitely my favorite in the series as well. And yeah, and I'm gonna hopefully go in. I'm gonna go into detail, and hopefully just enlighten you guys, or to why many people feel Dragon Quest VIII is their favorite, is their fan favorite. But and of course in the chat we have my mods Amber and Sora. Welcome in, guys, and of course Queen Mod Valk. Welcome in. Oi, Gov. Yes. Of course we shall get into that character that Valk is referencing soon. Because this game has like any other Dragon Quest, like any other RPG, it has a wide range of characters, and they are all very, very just very beloved. You obviously got you got the voiceless main character, the hero who is he's noble of heart. He does what's right. All he wants to do is just help, stuff like that. And and of course he's also joined by the king that he served, called Trode, who him yeah tr- who like his daughter, who travels with them in the form of a beautiful white horse. um Trode and his daughter Medea were transformed into a little gremlin kind of like goblin creature and a beautiful horse. um and look at the chat as well. Rat4 popped in to say Rat4 has popped in to say hello Rat4, and thank you for popping in as well, even if it is quick. Um, but yes, and so yeah, there is a wide range of characters. Again, you got Trode and Medea, who they are from they're part of the heroes. They're part of the heroes history, part of the hero story. And he is he serves them. And joining joining him is one of my personal favorite characters as well, the bandit Yangus, who is he speaks in kind of like a Cockney kind of accent, like "Oi, governor," kind of Cockney accent. He calls the main character Gov or Governor, and he serves him as his right hand man because the hero saved his life in that. And Yangus brings a lot of comedy to it. There are of course multiple characters in it as well, like like any RPG. You've got the beautiful and alluring, but also feisty and dead and dangerous Jessica. And round off the last character that you can play in the original is the handsome and capricious flirt of a Templar, Angelo, who a certain mod of mine likes. I won't say who. Um, so you got a wide, like with any RPG, you got a wide range of characters. You got a wide range of characters. And they all bring an element to. They all bring their own element to the story, which make it a great ensemble of characters. Um, but yeah, I think I'm gonna start with the where it began with Dragon Quest VIII. Um, because Dragon Quest VIII did many things differently in the series. Like it following the example of Final Fantasy X. It was the first. It was the first Dragon Quest game on the PlayStation 2, coming out in 2004. And yeah, and it made great strides to kind of break away from the traditional Dragon Quest format to, make something all its own. It like Final Fantasy X, Dragon Quest VIII was the first Dragon Quest to have voice acting. It was the first Dragon Quest to have voice acting. Bringing bringing more personality to the characters, expanding their character, their personalities, their emotions, their desires, their needs, their wants. The strength and their determination. So you have so you have, unlike the other Dragon Quest, you have more depth to the characters, and yes, of course, as my mod Valk says in the chat, it was an all British cast as well. British represent, Britain represent, all British cast, and you could go no wrong. There was some very good characters in it, very good voices in it, um, and yeah, and this voice acting, yeah, it definitely drew people in as well. It definitely drew people in as well. Because again, like I said, the voice acting, it brought a whole new depth to the game with the world around it. The story, the struggle, even the main one of the main villains, Dolmagus. Even his voice has been like kind of memed because of some of the quotes he says. And yeah, so the voices definitely brought an impact to the game. And something interesting to note as well is the localization of this game as well, because Dragon Quest VIII is the first Dragon Quest game to drop the Dragon Warrior title. So in Japan, it wasn't called Dragon. No, no, in not Japan. Sorry, in North America, it wasn't called Dragon Warrior. It was literally Dragon Quest. So it's the first game in the series to drop that title. And to be honest, good decision. Dragon Warrior is good, but Dragon Quest just has that allure. It has that allure to it. It has that certain allure to it, a certain charm. It's short, it's sweet, it rolls off the tongue. It's very D&D kind of inspired. It's a very D&D inspired kind of name. It's something you expect from D&D or something of the like. Instead of like Dragon Warrior, that's something like that sounds like a kung fu movie. That sounds like a kung fu movie. Bruce Lee's Dragon Warrior or something, or well, obviously it was Enter the Dragon, but you know what I mean. It sounds like a cheesy kung fu movie. But Dragon Quest again has that, yeah, like Rat4 in the chat has said, it's it has that ring, it has a good ring to it. It's short, it's sweet, it rolls with the tongue, and it definitely was a good change. And of course, the subtitle of the game is Journey of the Cursed King. This is, of course, a reference to Trode, who is the Cursed King of he's the Cursed King of his kingdom, and yeah, the Cursed King of Trodain, the Kingdom of Trodain, along with his daughter Medea. And so, and yeah, like I said, the hero of Dragon Quest VIII, he is in the service of Trode, and he is journeying with him to try and break his curse. And like Dragon Quest VIII also brought in, obviously, like with other JRPGs, or like what other JRPGs do in franchises, Final Fantasy, for example, there's a different story each game. Dragon Quest VIII also brought on its own story as well, and its story is a lot more in line with a typical Western fairy tale, you might say, because the Kingdom of Trodain, not only was it cursed, the exact curse was that the entire castle had been covered with ivy and thorns, and the people inside had been turned to stone. So it's very like a Disney movie. It's very reminiscent of Sleeping Beauty, you could say. Yeah, it's very reminiscent of Sleeping Beauty. With Maleficent putting all of the people in the kingdom to sleep. Putting all the people in the kingdom to sleep. And growing thorns around and such. And And in the chat, Valk says, so fun fact, they also dropped Dragon Warrior because the copyright holders of the original name, Dragon Warrior, was a tabletop game in the States and threatened to sue Square Enix because of the name. Yep, exactly. So that's also another reason why Square Enix went away from the Dragon Warrior name. And again, it was a good choice. Not just because of the legal stuff, it was a good choice. Dragon Quest, again, it rolls off the tongue. It just rolls off the tongue. Like, it's, again, short, sweet, like Final Fantasy. It rolls off the tongue. It gives that air of adventure, fantasy. It's like, like Fairy Tale, for example, like, the anime Fairy Tale, that name, short, sweet, it beckons adventure. And so, and I, for one, definitely prefer the name Dragon Quest. But yeah, like I said, like as I was saying, the story of Dragon Quest VIII is very reminiscent of Sleeping Beauty. With a cursed kingdom, thorns everywhere, a cursed princess, her knight, her cursed princess, her knight who strives to cure her of her curse. You've got a king who loves his daughter very much, to the point where he'll do whatever it takes to protect her, because Trode is very protective of Medea when she's a horse. And so yeah, so it's very reminiscent of. It shares a lot of similarities with Sleeping Beauty, and it just brings forth an amazing story, again full of characters that will draw you in with their stories, an amazing world, music that makes you, it brings forth all sorts of emotions, um and with the world, for example, as well. Dragon Quest VIII was also the first. It was the first Dragon Quest in the series to have. Yeah, it was the first Dragon Quest in the series to have a seamless world. It was the first Dragon Quest in game to have a seamless world where you go into a town. You're not stuck at a pointless loading screen. You're not stuck at a pointless loading screen. You open the door that you're in the town. It's simple. You're just there. And so the world was scaled down to, I believe it was a 1-to-1 ratio. Which made the adventure feel a lot more massive. It was, it increased the scale of the adventure and how it looked, and the environments were all up, they were all upheaved, like they were all upscaled. They made it look so much better. Of course, with Akira Toriyama's, legendary style. May he rest in peace. And yeah, like because of his style and that, the environments look a lot more realistic. They're a lot more traversable. With this is the first Dragon Quest game as well where they didn't use 2D sprites or the bird's eye top down view. It's all fully 3D, cell shaded graphics, and it's got a nice cohesive anime like style. So it appeals to the anime fans, especially the fans of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, because again, Akira Toriyama, it's his art style. He is one of the people who he was the main graphic designer of the game, and in all this and the environments, yeah, they definitely, because of how they've done the environments, they definitely feel worth exploring. From the Cursed Kingdom of from the Cursed Kingdom of Trudane to to the Dragon Kingdom, or even just a simple the town of Alexandria, or the abbey that Angelo lives at. It's all the environments all they pretty much beg to be explored because of how they look and how just realistic. Like it feels like the world Dragon Quest VIII has gotten new life compared to the rest of the series. And yeah, and the 3D graphics definitely helped the game. I know when I first played it, I would have been 9 years old. No, I would have been 11 years old. When I first played when I was 11 years old, I definitely fell in love with it. My brother rented it from Blockbuster. He let me play. And then we found a copy of the game not long after, and we bought it for ourselves and that. sadly, I did give up the game a while ago, but that's because I needed money in that. But yeah, no, and um, but it's definitely I also realized I forgot to put in music, but it's fine. Um, but yeah, yeah, like, the game was just it sold me very early on. It sold me very early on. It was a very fun game, and yeah, I ended up loving it. Speaking of the music as well, like with all the other Dragon Quest games and JRPGs and that, it brought forth its own soundtrack of music. Um, and each of the music itself definitely makes you feel like like you're exploring a fantasy world. Like you're actually exploring a fantasy world. You're not like just walking around. You're just walk around and hearing the same music over and over again. It had a whole orchestral score, and it's like it brings a lot to the table with its world. Um, and the music is honestly just beautiful. If I remember right, it also featured a fully orchestrated soundtrack. Who was it? Who was it? I think it was performed by the Tokyo Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra, I believe. Um, and it and so it brought and so it brought yeah, so it brought back it brought forth just new new sounds, new soundtrack, and the music definitely again just it helped you kind of like be drawn into the world, especially when characters with their own themes and the kind of music that gets you pumped up and that. Looking at the chat, Rauk says Yuji Horii, the creator of the series, specifically picked Toriyama because he loved Dragon Ball and thought he was talented artist too. Exactly, yeah. So Toriyama was definitely obviously well known because Dragon Ball, and I can definitely say Yuji Horii did a great choice with Akira Toriyama because his art style just it fit Dragon Ball so much. It was just perfect for Dragon Quest. I mean, um, and look at Rapper says even at Tokyo train station. Yep. Dragon Quest Eight was everywhere. Philip Valk says Sugiyama, the man who created music, had written for movies and TV shows prior to working on Dragon Quest. So there you go. Yeah, so they had some very famous people working on it. Um, and going back to the world as well, Dragon Quest Eight, unlike the previous ones, or even smaller or time travel themed world like games like Dragon Quest 4, 5, 6, or 7, Dragon Quest 8 had a its world was seamless. Its world was seamless. The map was it was traversable. It was traversable. It blended well with the towns and the towns and the dungeons and that. So it encouraged exploration. There always, especially with side stuff like the infamous monsters or notorious monsters, strong monsters that you could fight and then recruit for the monster arena. There was a lot of side quests, a lot of just the world. It encouraged you to explore and experience the world, and yeah, and it definitely did its job with that. Like I for one definitely experienced spent hours just running around. Hours. I definitely just spent hours running around, grinding and exploring. And yes, of course, Balk says, don't forget the casinos and the poof poof. You can't forget the puff puff or the poof poof. No one can forget the poof the puff puff. um, but yeah, but of course these aren't the only things that Dragon Quest VIII did differently as well. Dragon Quest VIII also introduced a Dragon Quest VIII was the first game that it was the first game that really expanded the skill point customization system. So instead of just like having linear leveling, Dragon Quest VIII introduced a system to players could make characters how they wanted. They could make the main character use swords. They could make Jessica use whips. Angus use, I don't know, axes or scythes. And they could put skills in these these specified skill trees and get, new abilities. And, yeah, get new abilities and, and you could tailor your characters to how you wanted them to be. Like me, for example, I'm very big on spears. I made my main character wield a spear. I made him wield a spear. And he had some pretty good skills with the spear. Um, of course, I had Jessica use the whip because Jessica. Um, and and like Angelo, I had him use a sword, or and Angus, no Yangus, I had him use an axe, and then I switched to Sives once I got Sives and that. So you could do a lot with the characters, and it wasn't even just weapons. You could have like each character had their own unique skill tree as well. Like the main character had courage. Yangus had fist. I think Yangus had fisticuffs. I can't remember. You had Jessica who had sex appeal. You had Jessica who had sex appeal for obvious reasons, and then of course Angela, you had I think chivalry. I think it was chivalry with Angelo. Yeah, I think it was chivalry of Angelo. Charisma, that was it. Yes, thank you, Valk. It was charisma. And yeah, so they all had their own their own unique skills, skill trees that you can then again help tailor towards them. Um, I just make them a lot better. And these skills would then obviously make they'd make the combat more fluid. They would help out with combat, so you wasn't just going bonk with a stick or bonk with a weapon. They had different skills they could use. Flame slash, metal slash, hatchet man, all sorts of games, all sorts of moves that help the characters be strong and help the characters fight. And I know I definitely had a lot of fun as well with it. And this, of course, this skill customization. Excuse me. This skill customization obviously went into the later games as well, with the most recent installment. The most recent installment that isn't a remake. Dragon Quest 11. The skill tree on that one was also very. It was very expanded. It was very expanded. Yeah, it was very expanded, and you could do a lot more with it. With the characters, all had, I believe they had in Dragon Quest 11, they had 4 or 5 skill trees each, but you could, yeah, but you could again, you could make them how you wanted to be. Excuse me. And then another new mechanic that Dragon Quest VIII introduced as well was the alchemy pot, which appears in later games in different forms. Like again, talking about Dragon Quest 11, you had the forge where you could make items. The alchemy pot was similar to this, and the alchemy pot is what inspired the forge. Because with the alchemy pot, you could take 2 or 3 items together, and you could make different items with them. Sometimes making powerful items that you couldn't get anywhere else, or you could make powerful items that you could then get earlier than you were supposed to. So it was definitely a boon to people. It was definitely a boon to players. Definitely helped them out. And once you learned like different recipes and you learned how to really properly use the alchemy pot, it's one of the most broken. It's one of the most broken mechanics in the game. Speaking of mechanics as well, a new mechanic as well that Dragon Quest VIII introduced was the tension system, or psyching up. Now, this allowed a character to psych themselves up and build the tension within their bodies. They would skip their turn, but because this tension would then it would then increase the damage of their next attack or spell. If you manage to put their tension to 100, you could basically have them turn Super Saiyan. You basically have them turn Super Saiyan, and they'd be very powerful. It is a bit of a finicky system because if you mess it up, then it can go bad. But it was a system that definitely helped people. It definitely helped people to kind of, it added a bit more strategy to it. Do I do tension for extra damage? Do I risk it? So it definitely added a bit more, thought into the battles instead of just going bonk with weapon. It was a well thought out. I wouldn't say well thought out, but it was definitely a good system that later games would then incorporate in different ways. Again, using Dragon Quest XI as an example, you had the pep mechanic, which did the same as tension, but not so many. It didn't really have downsides. A little chat, yeah. Rap4 says almost like trance in FF9. Yes, so almost like trance, except this one you can do willingly. I wish that you could willingly do trance whenever you liked in FF9, but it is what it is. And so yeah, so the tension system definitely, again, it helped brings a bit more it helped bring a bit more a bit more variety of strategy in the game. Um, and I know it definitely helped me out quite a bit. Think up strategies. Oh, is it a good time for Yangus to get tension so I can have him do as much damage as he can, stuff like that. And it definitely helped. Um, and another thing that the Dragon Quest also brought in, which they also most likely took inspiration from Final Fantasy X with as well, is the monster arena. Because in Dragon Quest VIII, you can recruit and unique monsters to build a team for you for the monster arena. And it's a significant side quest which can yield some good rewards, and it's it basically it let you fight these monsters. It let you it's sort of like a Pokemon themed element, and it was definitely fun. I definitely had a lot of a lot of fun in the monster arena. I definitely had a lot of fun in the monster arena. Um, and of course, like all other Dragon Quests as well, like most games as well, a lot of games as well. Um, well, I can talk. I'll talk a little bit more about Monster Arena shortly. Um, but yeah, and yeah, Dragon Quest VIII definitely like it definitely it didn't it was a Dragon Quest game as well that it didn't pull its punches. It made it made it known straight away that you had to do grinding. You had to grind. You had to do strong. You had to get strong. You had to make your characters well. Um, yeah, you had to make your characters well, and you had to just be a bit more strategic with it, because even though like the first main boss fight can be challenging if you don't grind and don't make your characters quite well. So it's definitely a game that again just challenges you. It just challenges you. Excuse me. At this time I've just gotten off work, so yeah, I'm a bit tired. Um Now there isn't just new features as well. It isn't just new features as well. You've also got the day and night cycle of previous games of I believe it's 3, 4, and 5. Um, um, but with Dragon Quest 8, time also passes in the towns now as well. It passes in towns, and they give they give the player the option to change from day to night and vice versa at an inn. Um, and so it took away the item darkness lamp, or it took away the item the darkness lamp and the spells related to it, because there was no need for there was no need for them. There was no need to be able to turn there was no need for spells or items to turn day into night, because you could just go to a town, rest at the inn, and boom, and it's night or day. Um, and so yeah, so it's definitely a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, and speaking of the towns as well, another change that Dragon Quest VIII did differently from the other games is the towns. The towns again, like I mentioned earlier that the world was basically seamless. In the towns, you could see the buildings in the towns from the overworld view. So you could see, you could see the inn, you could see the weapon store, you can see all that in the town in the overworld view. Excuse me. And so, and it definitely was, unlike, of course, the older games where you just had like the sprite of the town. You had instead of just the sprite of the town, you have like the whole town, the actual whole town, and that. Um. Oh, excuse me. And like I mentioned earlier that you go into a town and there's no pesky loading screens. There's no pesky waiting, sitting at a black screen waiting for the game to load up excuse me, waiting for the game to load up the town and the villages and that. You just go straight into them, which definitely was a lot. It was definitely good. I very liked it. The nice seamless transition and that. It made the game just a little bit more, a bit more smooth. Um, and something else that was brought back from previous games as well was party conversations, where you could talk to your party members. But unlike other games, you could select which party members you talk to, or you could just cycle for them in order. Which meant that, for people who like a certain character more, they could then just talk to that character. Jesus, I should not be yawning this much. I do apologize. My a certain mod of mine would most likely talk to Angelo a lot. They would talk to Angelo a lot. I'm guessing. I myself spoke to Yangus a lot because Yangus is just he's Yangus. He's a funny character. But yeah, it definitely added a bit more interaction with the characters. And then, of course, like a lot of other games as well, it got a re-release on 3DS as well. It got a re-release on 3DS and mobile. And in speaking with the characters as well, it also introduced two new characters that you could play as well, who originally they were just NPCs. But the 3DS version made them playable characters because fan demand. And this is, of course, I'm talking about Mori, who runs the Monster Arena, and he is, he's a very interesting individual. He's he's very Italian inspired, and he runs the Monster Arena, and then you have Yangus's old partner, and well, it's hinted at, but love interest Red, who is a bandit queen, and she's definitely a character I really enjoyed, and I know I definitely wanted her as a playable character when I was playing it as a kid. I know I definitely wanted her to to be a character. No reason, just fact she's awesome. But unfortunately, it is only with the 3DS version that you get these guys as playable characters, as party members, which does suck. But at the same time, it it definitely shows just how far Dragon Quest VIII has come from. Even if it's just something simple like adding two new characters to be put on 3DS after being on PS2, it's definitely a good step, because it made it so people would be. People could access it a bit more because obviously at the time 3DSs were very popular. PS2s weren't as popular, even though they were still like the most sold console in the world. There were some people who didn't have a PS2. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, but yeah, and I know I definitely want to get my hands on a copy of the 3DS version as well because yeah, it's definitely a it's a good reimagination. It's a good remake. And the 3DS, the 3DS, the 3DS, the 3DS version definitely it brought its own changes. It brought its own changes as well. Um, for example, there are no random encounters in the 3DS version. Unlike the PS2 version, there's no random encounters. You see the monsters on the overworld, and you can just go and attack them if you wish. You can just go and attack them. Um, and yeah, and added new side quests. That you could do, that you could take part in. You could take part in. Um, yeah, that you could take part in, and that. Um, and it was just it's definitely just sorry, my brain's not working. It's just, yeah, it's definitely, again, you can see how far it's come since its 2004 release. Um, and even dungeons would change as well, where some dungeons had gimmicks that weren't in the PS2 version. They would have like different save point areas. Um, it made it easier so you could it made it easier so you could upgrade characters easier because you could save the skill points for later use instead of just use them there and then. Um, and yeah, there's definitely a lot more. I would say for anyone to play it, if they couldn't get their hands on the original, I definitely would say go for the 3DS version, just because it is just well, it's just very good, just very good. And it even it even added more scenarios to enhance backstory. So you would see more backstory from both the hero and Dulmagus. It added an alternate ending as well, which I gotta admit is kind of funny. I When I played it on an emulator years ago, I saved it right near the end so I could watch both endings, and it was interesting. And of course, some things were toned down as well for the 3DS release. Some things were toned down, like some of Jessica's more revealing outfits were toned down. Certain characters like getting stabbed or certain cutscenes were toned down because they were seen as a bit too a bit too risque, a bit too just not suitable. And but all in all, the 3DS version still remains an amazing version of the game, a version port of the game. And yeah, I definitely want to see. I definitely want to see if I can get my hands on a copy. Um, because again, I love Dragon Quest VIII. It's so good. Who knows? Maybe at some point I might even stream the original. We shall see. Ah, my eye. Looking in the chat as well, I see my friend Squiggles has popped in. Nice to see you, Squigs. Hopefully you're having a good day. Um, but yeah, as you can tell, there's a lot to love with Dragon Quest Eight. Um, and going back to the characters as well, going back to the characters, because I mentioned at the start of the episode, there it has a wide range of characters. They're all they're all very interesting. They all have their own their own quirks, their own personality traits, their own things about them that makes them a great character. Again, my favorite character is Yangus, the Cockney bandit who tried to rob the hero, but he ends up falling through a wooden bridge, and the hero has saved his life, and so Yangus dedicated his service to the main character because he saved his life and starts calling him governor. Um, and so yeah, and then of course you got the hero again, the silent protector, the silent leader. The silent leader. You got Jessica. The alluring but feisty lady. So yeah, so a wide range of characters. Um, and they helped expand the world as well, because all the characters you see in the world, they all have their, they all have their own stories. Some that you get wrapped up in, some that you can talk to and you can do side quests to find out, or you can just simply learn them from about them from just having a simple conversation. And and the way the characters speak as well, you could see the personality even in their text. um I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it's there's just a lot to talk about with this game. um the story as well is also, it's full of twists and turns. Again, I like it. I said it was similar to Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, I said it was Sleeping Beauty, similar to Sleeping Beauty, but it also has, some nods to other, yeah, it also has some nods to, it has some nods to, other fairy tale stories as well. And it all leads to a very it leads to a very great, it leads to a very great story, which sends you on a magical adventure through the world, and you end up just seeing like sights and scenes. Like, there's it's not just, dramatic flair. It's not just dramatic flair or action. There's heartfelt moments, there's comedy moments, there's sad moments. And it's just a cocktail. It's a cocktail of emotions that really draw people in. It really draws people in. Makes you think, oh, okay, I like these characters, I like the story. Where's this gonna go? You know, um, yeah, and I mentioned that, the some of the fights are really challenging, and they were very challenging. Um, some of the bosses, you have to use like certain tactics or certain ways of fighting, and yeah, you had to, certain ways of fighting, and you had, again, you twist and turns, like, dual make like, twist with dual magus, the true, and the twist with the true antagonist of the game. um it is very much good versus light, but it's one of those stories where there's more to it than meets the eye. um and just Yeah, it's just a wonderful story that I have found myself playing again and again. And like that I Yeah, that I find myself playing again and again. And it's like Final Fantasy 9. It's one of those games that has something for everyone. Whether you want the fairy tale like story, or you want the fairy tale story, you want the turn based combat, or the customizable skill tree. Or the wide range of characters, each with their own quirks. Yangus being, he's a bandit, but he's soft spoken. Or you've got Angelo, who is a Templar. He's supposed to be noble and chivalrous, and just, he's supposed to be, like, he's not supposed to like indulge in any like vices, but he gambles, he flirts with women, he drinks. So there's definitely a lot of character, and the characters definitely each have their own, flair that really makes them, well, just make them human. Just makes them human. And I can tell that people would, I can see people fall in love with the characters, because a lot to love of them. And the 3DS version, uh, no, because the thing is, as well, is, um, the 3DS version, well, no, not even just the 3DS version. The game also had a feature called, Dragovian Trials, where you could do Dragovian Trials to get, rewards. It was a good way to test your abilities, test your skills of the game, while also learning more about the hero as well. So, it encourages, with the alternate ending, it encourages replay. It encourages replay, because once you beat the story, you can then go for the alternate ending, so you can find out the hero's true origins. True origins. Um, you could find out. Yeah, you could find out his true origins, find out some secrets about the hero and some of the characters, and yeah, there's just a lot to there's just a lot to really love of it. There's a lot to love of it, and I just I just think that it's an amazing game. It's an amazing game. It's definitely a game that I will always go back to. I actually have a physical copy over there as well somewhere. Um, so for those who haven't seen it, you have that. There's the main the actual main thing of the game, the case of the game. So and so the art style, keeping in with Akira Toriyama, it's definitely again, it's a very kind of like anime kind of inspired art style. Just it feels cute, but it can be serious as well. But it's definitely it definitely draws in it could definitely draw in the anime fans. Uh, I'm trying to think what else there is for me to talk about. I spoke about the characters. Um, trying to. I think I spoke. Yeah, I think I spoke about the characters. Um, spoke about the world, the music. Um, I think that's all I can really say about the game. To be honest, like I hopefully I've been able to tell you guys about how like hopefully I've been able to tell you guys about the good parts of the game. Hopefully it's inspired you guys to um hopefully it's inspired you guys to play it, because I think with everything I've spoken about, I think it's I think it's a fan favorite game because of the like I think it's I think it's a fan favorite game because, again, like with the whole fairy tale like story, the whole Sleeping Beauty kind of like story, and that there's that sense of magic with the game and the story, a sense of magic and wonder. It feels very much like a Japanese version of a Japanese version Disney game. Like if Disney made a turn-based RPG of like Sleeping Beauty, but made it anime, or and then put their own twists in it. So it's definitely and there's definitely for something for everyone. Definitely something for everyone. And I just hope that, and of course, it has a wide range of enemies as well, like, they're all with unique designs. The most famous design, of course, being the slimes in the game, these little kind of teardrop looking enemies, and that, kind of like. And yeah, and so like, there's definitely a lot more, like with Final Fantasy. There's definitely enemies that are like very recognizable, very notable, very memorable, and it's just um that it's just an amazing game. It's just a game that I think everyone should play. I think everyone should play. Everyone should try it. Especially if they want to try a nice if they want to try a nice cozy JRPG that will challenge you, but also bring you into a world where you can just be drawn into an amazing fairy tale like adventure as you help King Trode and Medea. You help King Trode and Medea become human again and break the curse on them, and it's just yeah, it's just an amazing game that I think everyone should play, and it's it's because of everything I spoke about. I you know I can easily say it's not just a good game. It is one of the greatest games ever made. It's one of the greatest turn-based JRPGs ever made. And again, I just I encourage everyone to play it. I encourage everyone to play it. Whether you get a physical copy of the PS2, whether you get it on 3DS, whether you emulate either version, I say, I encourage anyone to play Dragon Quest 8, give it a try, see what you think, and see if you, like me and like many other people who see this game as their favorite, see if you can see if you can fall in love with the game, the characters, the world, the just and see if you can fall in love with the magic that is Dragon Quest VIII: The Journey of the Cursed King. But I think I've covered everything today. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank you all for watching this episode. If you liked this episode, feel free to like and subscribe if you liked it. I would very appreciate it. And feel free to put in the comments what you like about this game. What made you like this game more? What made you keep playing this game? What makes it a fan? What makes it a favorite? Get a favorite for you. Please feel free to let me know in the comments. I would love to hear other people's opinions. But yes, thank you for watching, everyone. For those watching this on YouTube, again, feel free to like and subscribe. And all I can say is, guys, thank you for watching, and may your Dragon Quest, may your Dragon Quest be an amazing one. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you for watching.